So everybody, it's Xilicks here, and welcome to week 7 of the Elysian Battle League. Since YouTube has for no reason removed annotations, I can no longer link you guys to the current battle. So that being said, you gotta just scroll through. Maybe I'll put a timestamp in the description if I remember. But yeah, let's just get into the team. So looking at our opponent, we are facing Zach in the Kentucky Torracats, and he has Mega Absol. Can be threatening if it sets up a sword stance, but I'm not incredibly worried about it. Most of my mons can take a sucker punch from full. We have Heat Train, which is the Z-mon. I am fully aware that this could be Bloom Doom, it could be Inferno Overdrive, it can be Corkscrew Crash. There's a plenty of things that he could run on it, and I'm relatively aware of most of them, although I don't think a Z Crystal will be coming unless he wants to get a surprise KO on the Melodic, but I'm not going to risk my Melodic around the C-Train until we know what item it has. Alakazam, this could be Focus Sash, could be Life Orb. With that Magic Art ability, it can abuse a lot of those items that typically may have a negative effect due to something else. Pretty high special attack, a decent amount of coverage moves. I have responses for it, like things like Rotom. But yeah, Tapu Bulu, big physical attacker. I have plenty of responses to this, not incredibly worried. Suicune can be annoying, can set up Calm Minds, can rest, can roar, Ice Beam, Scald, whatnot. Miltank, this thing can be very annoying, although it can be worn down. It does have access to self-recovery, as well as it's pretty fast for a bulky mon, and it can take a plethora of hits before going down. Raichu, I do not expect this to come, however it can fake out Volt Switch. Encore, I believe it gets HP Ice. I'm not incredibly worried about it, but it may come. If it does, I'm more than prepared for it. Golbat in a Violet Mon can defog hazards, can self-recover, Toxic, Brave Bird, whatever. I have Raichu written twice. Passimian is supposed to be the other mon. Typically you'd run this Scarfed because of how slow it is, but Fighting Stab isn't really something I'm worried about. I have resists for it. Zygarde 10% can set up Dragon Dances, can E-Speed, most likely going to be either a Banded or a Scarfed variant if it's brought this week, and then Fortress, which can hazard stack and take hits generally. So looking at my team, starting off I have Rotom. Rotom with Overheat to hit things like, I mean obviously you're required to run Overheat, but to hit things like the Fortress and whatnot. Will-O-Wisp to potentially burn like a Tapu Bulu. We cannot burn the Absol unless we catch it on a switch, but that would be a really stupid play for him to switch in. Really just burn things, you know, Volt Switch to gain momentum and Hidden Power Ground to hit the Heat Train, so we're not totally useless against it. I'm running max special defense so that I can take on the Heat Train, as well as I could potentially take hits from like a Raichu or whatever else. Also the Alakazam, max HP, max Spadef with a Calm Nature, a little bit of defense, and if I'm able to burn certain mons, then I can be both physically and specially defensive. Moving over to Melodic, a pretty basic set. I would like to fit Ice Beam on here, but I really cannot lose Haze if that Absol tries to set up Sword Dances, or the Zygarde tries to set up Dragon Dances, or like the Tapu Bulu, whatever. I cannot let things set up. That is worst case scenario, because a lot of these mons, if they set up once or twice, they can sweep through my entire team. So that is a huge thing to worry about. So I need Haze, even though I'd love to have Ice Beam. I need Toxic so I can Toxic things like the Suicune or the Miltank or whatever else. I wish I could Toxic Golbat, but I can't. Scald just to fish for burns. It is one way I can burn the Mega Absol if it comes down to it, as well as it hits the Heatran. It could potentially burn the Bulu. It hits, you know, potentially a burn on like the Golbat or whatever, Passimian, Zygarde. But yeah, I'd love to have Ice Beam to hit the Golbat, to hit the Zygarde, but I don't know. I need all the other moves, and I'm running physically defensive so that I can take better hits from things like the Absol, things like the Passimian, etc. Next up, I have my Mega Venusaur. Now, this is essentially my Tapu Bulu, check, switch in, whatever. Zen Headbutt probably only does around 40 to 50, depending on its item, depending on its spread. So I can take hits from that, as well as I can hit it back with a Sludge Bomb to OHKO it. I can Leech Seed things like the Suicune or the Miltank, Giga Drain, the Suicune, stuff like that. Synthesis for general recovery. Now, I'd love to have Earthquake on this so that I could hit the Heatran. But again, it's like, I'm just a move too short. You know, if this game had 5 moves, my teams would be great. My EVs are a little strange. I have a seemingly odd E-spread, or EV spread, but the 16 speed, I'm pretty sure creeps Heatran if he's no speed, which doesn't really matter because I don't have the Earthquake, but I can Leech Seed it at the very least. Running a fair amount of special defense and a bit in defense. I would like a little bit more in defense, but at the same time I don't want to have not enough special defense to take certain hits from things like the Suicune or like a Heatran, because a Z-move Heatran is still going to be doing a lot to me even with the thick fat, so I do at least want to have that in mind. Next up I have Choice Scarf Landorus. I really did not want to bring Choice Scarf Landorus, but I kind of have to. He has a lot of speed and I need something to control said speed. I'm running a bit of mixed with some physical attacks, some special attacks. I really only need Earth Power and Sludge Wave. I have the knockoff to, you know, take away a Violet from Golbat, to get rid of leftovers on things like a Suicune or even potentially Heatran, although I would 100% go for Earth Power unless he's on a balloon. We have most of our investment into special attack, enough speed to outspeed everything with the Choice Scarf. I believe this outspeeds Scarf Passimian, max speed Passimian. There's no way we can outspeed a Scarf Alakazam or like +1 Zygarde, so there's no point in trying. And then I have the rest in attack to boost up the U-turn and knockoff if I ever go for them. Next up I have Pangoro with the Rocky MZ. The Rocky MZ can do quite a lot to a Golbat if it no longer has its Violet or has taken prior damage. It's definitely going to be knocked out. Granted, if we hit, because I'm pretty sure it still takes accuracy into account. I don't remember. But anyways, we have the Drain Punch to get health back on things like the Miltank and whatnot. Stone Edge again to boost that Rocky MZ. Gunk Shot for the Bulu, although I imagine I'll never get an opportunity to go for that. It's just there if I think he's ever going to switch in. And then Knockoff to get rid of items. Max Attack with an Adamant Nature. The rest in HP just because I'm not outspeeding anything. There's no point in even trying. I might as well get the extra bulk. And then we have Swallow. Swallow 2 hit KOs everything with rocks, but as you've probably noticed, I don't have rocks. And the reason for that is Zach hasn't brought rocks most weeks. He has some weeks, and I honestly think that he will bring it this week just because I have things like the Rotom and the Swallow that are rock weak. He may even try to get it up very early on in the battle. I have no way of removing those hazards, but honestly, it's not the end of the world. This isn't going to be a hazards game for me. It's really all about, if I wear down like Heatran, this Swallow is killing everything. The issue with Swallow though is it will be very susceptible to things like a Sucker Punch from the Alakazam or a Zygarde 10% E-Speed. However, if I can get this in on like either a Sack or a good Volt Switch or U-Turn from Landorus or Rotom, I can click Boom Burst if that Heatran is weakened. So that's essentially the plan. I did need to run Timid. I would have liked to run Modest, but I do need to run Timid. I have a bit in attack just to kind of cancel out the Timid nature, although it's not the end of the world. I do have the Hidden Power Ground for the Heatran and the Heat Wave for the Fortress, although I don't know how often I'm going to be using those. It's just going to be more about the Boom Burst. So yeah, let's get into the battle without any further delay and see how it goes. Alright, so looking at the mons he has brought, it's essentially what I was expecting. The only thing that we don't see that I may have expected was the Miltank over maybe the Tapu Bulu, but that's fine. I can deal with Tapu Bulu, I can deal with all the offensive threats actually, as long as I play smart defensively. This is going to be a very important matchup just because this strongly dictates if I make playoffs. If I win this match, I have a very good shot at making playoffs. If I lose this match, it's a bit of an uphill battle. I need to win some big games in next coming weeks, and I'm going to have to really think outside the box if that's the case. So yeah, without any further delay, I'm just going to lead Swallow. I outspeed everything except priority. Also no Zygarde. So yeah. He does lead the Heatran, and I'm figuring, okay, he's probably going to get up rock, so I'm just going to Hidden Power Ground just to show him I have it. And now thinking that he's probably going to switch, or even if he does stay in, I'm safe to go to my Melodic, and he does switch into the Golbat. Now, I don't want to get Toxic on my Melodic, I'd rather have it happen to the Rotom, which it does, and here I was deciding, okay, I can either Volt Switch or I can Will-O-Wisp, and the reason why I wanted to Will-O-Wisp, knowing very well he could go Heatran, is because I wanted to lure him into a false sense of security. So right now he's probably expecting me to either Volt Switch or switch out depending on my speed, and I'm just going to stay in and hit him with a Hidden Power Ground, doing quite a lot of damage, and now he's essentially in Swallow range. He cannot switch into 2 Boom Burst anymore, and he obviously cannot take a Hidden Power Ground. Now he's going to go into the Tapu Bulu. It would have been amazing if I Wisped there expecting him to switch, but I didn't want to play around. I just went for the Volt Switch, and now my Swallow is inside. I click Boom Burst. This Heatran is not taking 2 of those, even with Grassy Terrain and Leftovers. He's at 19%, but for some reason he switches here. Now obviously this was a misplay. I don't know if he thought his Heatran could maybe live the Boom Burst, or if he was trying to switch in his Heatran to get more HP at some point. Maybe he wanted to sack Alakazam. But the thing that confuses me is he goes right back into the Heatran, allowing me to knock it out. So right there, I'm up 6-4. Now he goes Absol. So what I'm thinking right here is, if he clicks Swords Dance, there's a very decent chance that I either lose this game or the game he turns momentum around entirely. If he clicks Sucker Punch, there is a semi-decent chance I can live. The roll is kind of 50-50. Now, here is a time where I wish I probably invested a little bit more into HP. However, it's not going to matter because he is going to go for the Sucker Punch and knock out my Swallow. Now let me talk about this for a second. So, Swallow knocks out the Suicune to a KO. It knocks out the Golbat to a KO. It OHKOs this Absol, and it OHKOs or nearly OHKOs the Tapu Bulu, depending on his spread. Okay? So, at this point in the match, if I preserve Swallow, I can kill things when needed. The reason I did not is because if he misplayed in my eyes right there and clicked either Knockoff or Swords Dance, predicting me to switch, I could not let that happen. I could not switch into something in a lose an item, or have him go for a Swords Dance, whatever. The proper play there would have been either going Pangoro or Venusaur, because if he went for a Swords Dance, then what would happen if I was in Pangoro, the next turn he'd click Play Rough or Superpower if he has it. That's an easy switch for Venusaur for me. I can Mega Evolve. I'm pretty sure I take a Knockoff or a Sucker Punch with Venusaur just because of my investment, and neither of which get boosted. We find out later in the match though that he doesn't even have Swords Dance, so I was over predicting for nothing, but I still will stand behind that play to a certain degree just because I could not let him Swords Dance. Now, had I gone Pangoro or Venusaur there, the reason I named those 2 mons in particular is because neither can be knocked off and they both resist Dark or Fairy / Fighting. I'm mad I made the play now, but at the time, it felt like the right thing to do because this Swallow had already picked up 2 kills. And by that logic, you'd think, okay, well, he doesn't want to mess around with a threat, he just wants to get it out of the way. But then the other logic is, well, what if I value this as a threat and want to switch, and then he basically gets like a free knockoff? But I know that Sucker Punch was 100% the play, and I knew that he was most likely clicking Sucker Punch, but I just couldn't let it happen on the off chance where he didn't, because if I knocked out the Absol right there, the game was over. So again, that's why I'm kind of thinking like now, I should have just saved the Swallow, but I don't know. So let's continue on with the battle. I go into the Venusaur now, knowing very well that he could have a Psychic Attack. He goes straight into the Golbat. I cannot Leech Seed, so I just go for a Synthesis to see what he's going to do. As he U-turns on, I believe, the play that I try to Leech Seed, and he does bounce it back, so he did make a decent set of plays there. But really, it just put me in the position where I was expecting to be. He then flinches me, which is very, very unfortunate because I clicked Giga Drain there, and then had I gotten the second Giga Drain off, this thing would either be dead or he would have switched it out. That flinch, actually, wait. Let me talk about that flinch a little bit more. So what would have happened is, if he didn't flinch me, I would have hit him for all that damage, and then he basically would have been forced to switch out because he couldn't kill me the next turn unless he wanted to go for the flinch. Or if he did switch into like Golbat or whatever, I could have gone for a Synthesis, and I would have been at better health with my Venusaur, and this stupid Absol thing would either be dead or he would have switched it out. Either way, I make a series of plays where I try to predict his certain attacks and then go for a Skull to either burn it or just do plenty of damage. He goes into Suicune, I'm fine with that. I Toxic, he roars me into the Venusaur. Now here, I couldn't really risk him, like, I knew he's clicking Ice Beam here, right? And I didn't think there was any way I could live it. On the off chance I could live it, I believe I went for a Giga Drain because that would have recovered a decent amount of HP. But I don't live the Ice Beam. I don't even know the calc. I'm not even going to check the calc because I'm pretty sure I don't live. Now here I was expecting him to switch. I go for the knockoff. Luckily I don't get burned because that would have sucked. But I see now that he just wants the damage on me, which is unfortunate. I do crit him there. I'm pretty sure that mattered as far as me getting health back, but he would have died to the Toxic damage that turn. Now he goes Bulu. There's nothing really I can do here except go Landorus. And here I know 10,000,000% he's going Golbat, as he did. Now the play is click knockoff, right? But if he knows that I'm gonna click knockoff and stays in, it's another one of those things where it's just I cannot risk that, because if I knocked out the Bulu right there, I would have been in a pretty good position, right? Because then my Milotic feels relatively safe the rest of the match, and I don't know. So he goes Golbat on the Sludge Wave. My Rotom takes more rocks damage, he roosts. Okay, whatever. So now it's a little bit of a game of him just clicking Roost so that he doesn't get hit with an electric attack. Now the thing I could have done here is I could have clicked HP Ground right there, but I didn't really want to. I just wanted a bit of damage because now my mindset is I need to get rid of this thing's Violate, which I do this turn. He Roosts, gets that HP back, which is fine. Now I know he's clicking either Toxic here or whatever, so I sack Rotom. I didn't need to sack Rotom, that didn't make any sense, but whatever. So my Melodic gets Toxic, and now I'm thinking, well, the only way I kill this is if I either get a crit or I just keep repeatedly hitting it. And had I crit him at one point here, so let's say hypothetically I knock this Golbat out, right? I don't have Ice Beam, by the way, so I can't Ice Beam. He outspeeds anyway, so it wouldn't even matter if I had Ice Beam. So I'm thinking, okay, I need to weaken this Golbat as much as possible. I don't care about health of my Melodic at this point. It's essentially dead. But the only move I can click to win this game is Sludge Wave. Right now, at this point in the match, if he doesn't hit me, I'm out of Sucker Punch range. So essentially, had I crit him at any point, now obviously this is hoping for hacks, which is a stupid thing to do. Had I crit him at any point, I win. Because I'm out of Sucker Punch range right now. Bulu dies to Sludge Wave, Absol's in Sludge Wave range, but he goes for the Brave Bird, and now I'm in Sucker Punch range, and the game is over at this point. There's no point in making you watch this. I continue to attack him. I do actually knock out the Golbat with a crit later on. It didn't matter though because the match was already done. He goes into the Absol and Sucker Punches me for 5% of my HP, and I go down. So the flinch on the Mega Venusaur, I'm not gonna make a big deal out of it, but the flinch on the Mega Venusaur was pretty big. It made it so that my Venusaur was basically dead at that point, unless I went for a Synthesis. But if I went for a Synthesis, then I wasn't attacking him and I was playing around with more flinches. I couldn't have that happen, so I had to go for Giga Drain. If I could have gotten the first Giga Drain off, the battle, I imagine, would have been a little bit different because he would have had to switch out of the Absol at that point. I mean, he wouldn't have had to, But he either was sacking off the Absol or switching out. And at that point in time, he was either switching into Golbat or Bulu. Bulu I beat 1v1 because, you know, I have Sludge Bomb. I'm probably not outspeeding it, depending on his spread. But either way, like, I can take hits from the Bulu, even his Zen Headbutt, even if he's banded. As far as if he goes Golbat, then I could have just Synthesized up, as I mentioned before, and my Venusaur would not be dead. But it is the game. I'm not mad about the flinch. It's just, the battle would have been very different if it weren't for that one flinch at a really awkward time. But yeah, I was kind of expecting to lose the Zac. The bigger thing to talk about in this match was the misplay with Swallow. But again, I just did not want to risk him setting up a Swords Dance. Even if he did set up a Swords Dance, Venusaur or Pangoro was still the play. But, oh well. I didn't think of that at the time. I can think of it now. But, yeah. In total, I probably should have brought Hazard Removal. I didn't think that I'd need it because I watched his recent matchups and he didn't bring hazards to all of them. But obviously, you know, I don't know. Because what would I really drop for Donphan? Everything kind of had a use in this matchup. But yeah, I'm rambling. I'm pretty sure I'm out of playoffs at this point. The only way I get playoffs is if Erasmus gets like 6-0'd by Zac, and then I have to like 6-0 Erasmus and beat Aggron by a decent differential. I mean, it doesn't even have to be a 6-0. Like, it could be, if he loses like 2 4-0s, for example, and I beat Aggron by like 4 or 5-0, I don't know. It's really out of my favor at this point, so I'm basically discounting myself. But yeah, I'll see you guys next time. My name is Xilicks. Okay, thanks, bye.